Man, this really stinks. I thought I was going to get some nice boards out of this. I'm just going to mark off 16 inches here, buck these things up. Make some firewood. Got an awkward length now because I was cutting it back to get away from those splits. So now I can't get my 16 inches perfect, but we'll just make them even. It's nice to have 16 perfect when you're doing firewood. That way your stacks are all nice and lined up. But it's not the way the cards were dealt on this one. Now I have to get my saw out of the contraption here. Thankfully, that's pretty easy. Well, you can see the start of our Alaskan mill cut there. Still sad about that. Again, from our splitting episode, we'll reflect on that this is red oak. This is what I'd call a brittle wood. It's made up of short, stiff wood fibers that don't absorb the impact very well. So we can go at this thing right from the middle and get it to split in half. Just stack this stuff up right here and get it later. It's a bummer. That is some, that's some good firewood. Needs to dry for quite a while. At least a year. Better 2. That's some good stuff. One nice thing about cutting wood in the snow, or splitting wood in the snow, is when you go to put your piece down, there's some give to it, and it rarely tips over if you can sink it down in the snow a bit. Bad thing about doing this in the snow is the exhaust from your saw turns a lot of the snow into water, and then gets your saw wet. And then everything wants to stick to it, all the sawdust and debris gets things a little bit dirty. Let's see if I can do this from my knees. Oh, was there ever a doubt? I was really hoping to get the lumber out of this, but the one thing about splitting wood, the aggression I had at that failure has completely dissipated. So if you've got some anger or built up angst from your testosterone, split some wood, man. You won't care. It'll go away. It will go away. Were you paying attention? That's how you dissect a log. Look at that. Beautiful. Textbook. I wish they all came apart like that. If you watch one of my previous episodes in this Firewood series, I give tips on hand splitting with a maul. And that was the culmination of all those tips. Working away, working around the wood, reading it with each hit, and trying to minimize the number of times handling the wood. As I said, it makes me personally cringe every time I see somebody bend down, pick up the piece of wood, put it on another piece of wood or a chopping block. Yeah, I mean, probably saves your maul edge a little bit, but you could spend a lot of time sharpening for the time that you're wasting handling those pieces. Anyway, if you're new to this, don't expect your first time to go like this. Maybe you're a natural gifted log splitter and it will, but don't expect it to. It takes a little bit of practice. It's hard to see that from just observing, but go experience it, give it a try, and maybe re-watch some of that stuff, and it'll make more sense as you go along. Obviously, you want to be safe. Wear a pair of glasses. Chips can get up in your eyes, but the biggest danger is your feet. And that's why some people use the chopping block too, I know. But if you've got control of your maul head and a good grip on it and are actively steering it, you'll be just fine. Probably a good idea to wear some steel toes or safety toes when you're doing this, just so what happens, obviously you're coming down like this. If you have a deflection, it can come down, and if your ankle's not correct and you're pulling it towards yourself, it can go right into your foot, and that will likely be a trip to urgent care at the very least. Probably the emergency room to reattach a toe, so don't do that. And the biggest tip I can give for preventing that is to keep your handle low on the strike. If you keep the handle up here, obviously that allows this to rotate. You can even get you in the lower leg. So at impact, you want to keep the handle low. So you follow that to the ground. There's no way that maul can come back at you if you're following and keeping the handle low to the ground. Everyone gets tired, gets careless at times, but that's one thing you don't want to get careless with. If you've got a piece on the ground like this that got away from you, it's kind of nice to split it on the ground instead of having to handle it. So what you can do is take more of a golf swing at it. But what you don't want to do is have your foot behind it here, obviously, or even here. If you deflect, you'll get it. So you got to be kind of angled away from it here. Take a swing at it. That can definitely save you some handling too. These are things, as you just do this more and more, you'll just naturally pick up on to save time. Of a log that has a knot here. And so I started with this end up and didn't make much progress on the first hit. Pretty hard to bust up a knot, so what you want to do is put that knot down and have the clean wood to the top. That will allow your maul to get some penetration and get the split going before it runs into that knot. And at that point, it's too late and you've already got your piece of wood split. It's kind of neat to look into these old trees as you're splitting them apart. These knots are old branches that have since fallen off way long ago, and the tree has grown around it. A lot of these lower branches die off and fall because as the tree grows and the forest surrounds it, that lower branch isn't getting any sunlight as the canopy develops around top and it dies off. The tree absorbs it and grows around it and forms a knot in there. The other thing snow does is makes life a little more forgiving when you're bucking up your wood. If you can fell your tree onto a nice thick blanket of snow, you can cut through your log and into that snow a little bit without the fear of hitting rocks and dirt. Just makes things a little more forgiving there. Here we've got an example of a real pain in the butt. This is all a knot through here. And you can see how I started on this end and everything as I split it wants to drive away from that knot. And the bottom end is still quite large and flared out and the top is dwindling down on us. A lot of times some of these, depending on how they go, you have this is the big advantage of a powered wood splitter, obviously, is the ability to go right at the center of that and has the power just to bust up that knot. But we don't have that. So I'm going to go at this a little bit, see how it behaves. And at some point on these, you got to make the decision, is it worth it? And do we just punt? I started a pretty good crack in there. We'll see if we can finish it from this side. But yeah, the problem is these pieces start getting real bizarre shapes as they diverge away from that knot. They don't give you nice uniform pieces that, is this sucker worth it? Or do we just put it back out in the woods to decompose and fuel the next tree? So far, this one's behaving just enough. All right, not too bad, but like I said, you get this bizarre ball on the end. Even if you're putting it through a powered splitter, you're going to get that. I don't think this side's going to behave as well, but we'll see. Maybe. Yeah, you got to make sure your forehead isn't too close to some of these. They've got pretty good spring back. You can bonk yourself right in the head with your maul. Sometimes on these stubborn ones, you can get them on the side like that, but this one doesn't want to. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. We're going to bust off pieces like that. So that thing, not really worth it. It's going in the compost, nature's compost pile. Let's see what this one does. Similar thing going on. As it gets to that knot, the grains just diverge so much around it that you don't get normal pieces. Not worth it. All right, we're at our last round here. I'm ready for this to be done. This is the butt round. So it's got a pretty good flare on it. We'll see how it breaks apart. I'm still a little disappointed that I couldn't make some lumber out of this. But after all this work, I don't care too much. One last tip here. As you keep splitting more and more, you'll notice certain pieces don't require the grain and everything's real nice and don't require a lot of effort to peel your individual pieces off. So on pieces like this that are fairly large and stable, you can, instead of just going at the middle every time, you can start peeling off pieces that are a finished size with the main piece still standing up so you don't have to constantly pick things up. So I like to do corners and edges in that way. We'll see if we can get a couple off of this piece. You can see there we got one off. We tipped over, but it didn't completely go flying. See if we can get another one. And another. So that's the idea on that tip. The bigger your main piece, obviously, the wider, the more stable it is, the better chance you have of doing that. And the better the grain. And of course, if it's leaning up against something, that works too. Beautiful. All right, there we have our nice little pile of split wood. Repeat that 5-10 times, and you'll have a cord of wood. Hi-ho, hi-ho. Done with work I go. Putting my Alaskan mill away that would not work. Such a disappointment. Wants to make me blurk.